everyone. Um, so hi, welcome to the Virtual Repair Clinic Zoom social. I hope you all learned something new or somewhat helpful today. To introduce myself, my name's Jasmine. I go by she, her pronouns. I'm a third year at Cal presently, and I've been a staff associate for Cal Zero Waste for a year now. I was onboarded to work on the repair clinic, but I've since moved on to different projects. I got involved in zero waste as I started to learn more about like waste issues and the issues surrounded around it. And I wanted to see what I could do to be a part of this and to like decrease my own personal waste and just overall in general as well. Um, So who's Cal Zero Waste? We are a campus department which is responsible for the UC Zero Waste for 2020 and beyond goals. We are made up of full-time staff, a manager, Lynn, and part-time student staff. We are under facility services around campus who are in charge of bin and waste management on campus. That includes like drivers and custodial staff. So for today, we'll get started with a bit of intros. Um, we'll do a brief introduction, then we'll go over a bit of like history and motivation about like Berkeley's thrift store and repair clinic, how we got started, and then I'll teach you all what I know about repairing clothes, the tools needed, some things to consider, and maybe some helpful tips that might be useful when repairing clothes at home or just like on the go. And then we'll have our conclusion, and then that will be all. All right, so like reuse is thrift store. Where is it? Do you guys know that it exists? So we do have a thrift store on campus. Sadly, it's closed right now due to COVID, but it's on the first floor in the ASUC Student Union, MLK. And like reusing and thrifting is really good in like in the refuse and reuse part of the 5 R's of like refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, and rot. Um, it's Yeah, so like the reuse thrift store is like really good because it allows for a one-on-one item trade-in. So no matter what item you bring in, you can trade it with another item. And then all of our items in the store are $3 or less. There's also like free books and school supplies. All right, so the repair clinic. So why did we get started? So a new part of the thrift store is Reuse's Repair Clinic. It initially was inspired by Patagonia's Worn and Wear program and other fix-it clinics around SF. It aims to reduce and eliminate textile waste from damaged clothing items. The clinic also serves as a community building space as volunteers um, help mend clothes and like teach each other like how to mend clothes if you wish to learn. So it's really cool. You can get involved if you want or not, but yeah. So in so how did we get started? In 2018, Cal Zero Waste Staff Associate Chelsea Hood and like the reuse president then Serena Hughes thought up the idea to create a repair clinic to repair clothes. They applied for the Green Initiative Fund grant, and then they started. So we went through a lot of iterations on like how to maximize repair efficiency and like not lose any items of clothing. And then after that, we transitioned it totally into the hands of reuse. So the repairs clinic aim is to reduce textile waste, but how much do we actually produce? So textile waste in SF um, kind of amounts to like 9,500 tons of textile waste, it's estimated. In California, it's like 1.4 million tons. Textile waste in the US would be 16.9 million tons. And then I wasn't even able to find an approximation for the textile waste produced globally, but it is just probably an overwhelming amount. The textile waste recycled in the US is only 2.6 million tons, which is a very small like portion compared to like the 105 million metric tons of textile fibers produced like globally in 2019. These numbers are quite shocking as nearly 100% of textiles, clothes and sheets are recyclable in some way. They're able to be reused, put into other things, but It's estimated that only 15% actually get recycled, and part of this recycling is just sending off clothes to other nations, which in itself isn't a good thing as it might disrupt their economy. Um, but like if you do the math, that's like 85% of textiles that we use that go to waste every year, which is quite a lot. We had a great Zoom social last week on fast fashion. Check it out on the Cow Zero Waste website if you wish to learn more. Um, Yeah, so what are the things that we can fix at home? We can fix missing buttons, broken zippers. They're a little finicky, but fixable. Holes of any sizes, weakened fabric. If things are just worn down, you can just add a patch underneath to kind of secure it. And then rips and tears, of course, along seams. So what are like the materials that we need? Um, to run a to run a repair clinic, you would need all of these items, but at home you probably just need some thread, needles and pins, um, buttons. Other materials that are nice to have would be zippers, patches, and fabric glue, but not all of these are needed. Um, Sewing machine's also nice, but not required. And then if you were to run a repair clinic at your own, for yourself, you need a check in and out form just to make sure everything is flowing and organized. What are the things to consider when repairing clothes? It's important to consider the type of tear or hole you have. Is it a clean cut? Is it large, small? Is a fabric the fraying type? This would all go into consideration of like what stitch to use. And the most common stitch is the running stitch. Then the invisible stitch is really nice to have in your like toolbox. And then a back stitch is just uh, very aesthetically pleasing, depending on what you want to do. This is a video I created to just demonstrate the types of stitches. So when you thread your needle, you first want to hold the very end of the thread. You don't want to hold too far down. The closer you hold towards the end of the thread, the easier it is to thread the needle. Then you'll tie a knot at the end, of course, the second. One thing to consider is whether or not you're going to use the front end or the back end of your thread of your stitch. So like one end is visible and the other end isn't. If you do a traditional running stitch where the side, the front and the back are even, then you'll have like one side is like they're both sides are the same. However, if you do an invisible version of that, as you'll see in a bit, I started from the back, but if I wanted it to be truly be invisible, I would have started from the front, because the side that you want to see is the back end. That's like the visible side, but that's also like the invisible side, as you're only grabbing one stitch in the front, so you won't see the thread at all doing this sort of running stitch. As you can tell, like there's only dots on the other end, and then so that's like very low visibility. It won't make an impact when you're sewing your clothes, so you won't be able to like see any like weird stitches on the other side. It'll just be dots and that. And if you choose a thread that matches, it'll be very like inconspicuous. Here you see me doing a back stitch. This is for when you want to see when you kind of want to do a straight line. So for the running stitch, there's gaps in between, specifically more so on like the top running stitch. But if you do a back stitch, your main line or the visible line would be just a straight line. Like this, a back stitch is good for hemming, or adding a top stitch to a hem, because it's a straight line. It's like clean. You're able to like make it continuous without any spaces. back is also very similar, but for the back, back stitch, you'd want to kind of use the top portion as your outside. One of my favorite stitches is the ladder stitch. As you can see, like in the video, it kind of looks like a ladder. You go back and forth. So this side on the open end, you're not able to see anything. And then you just kind of go back and forth like a ladder, forming a ladder like that. And then you just pull it taut when you're finished. Again, there's like an invisible version of the ladder stitch. In this case, on the outside or inside, whichever side you're trying to, that's visible, you're only going to be pulling one stitch. I'm sorry, this video is not very super clear, but so you'll kind of be you're doing the same ladder stitch, but when you're pulling through on the long side, I only pull through one stitch. So when you flip it over, instead of seeing a dash, you'll see only like dots. So like this ladder stitch would be good for bags, since, actually, let me go back to here. Yeah, so like with the invisible version, you only see dots on the outside. So that allows you to just like not have to see any like thread through on the other side. And that's why those are pretty interesting and useful. All right, so does anyone have any questions about like stitches or kind of what sort of like thread to use, things like that? All right, great. Okay. So for buttons, they're also pretty doable at home with just a thread and a needle. Um, so for buttons, it's similar to this question of like, how do you draw your X's, up or down, left or right? It doesn't really matter which direction you go, kind of as long as your button's on there. But a few important things to know is that you want to add a spacer onto the top of your button, kind of like this. You can use another needle or a toothpick. This is the parallel lines, and then this would be a cross. So for buttons, you just want to go over each row 6 times, then switch and then go another 6 times. And then that's how you know your button's secure. When you take out your spacer, the button is then able to like lift off of the fabric. Without the spacer, your button would be very difficult for your button to like lift off the fabric, and then you wouldn't be able to button your clothes easily. Yeah. So then lifting up the spacer, you can also create a shank, and that just makes sure that your button is going to stay in place. And then you just do that by after doing the buttons, you just wrap thread around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and then your button is then now fully secure and then spaced away from your clothes, and then you can just go through the back end and then tie a knot. Yeah. So that's how you create like a really nice button on your clothes. And then it's also spaced so that you can like button your clothes easily when it's done. If you okay, so we had some earlier like annotations for hemming pants or just hemming clothes in general. So I will use this pair of jeans as a demo. I hope it shows. So you'd want your jeans to be folded inside out. Say I wanted it shorter around here. I would fold it inside out, and then I would do some sort of stitch, probably a running stitch or a back stitch all along the hem here. And then once you do that, you can cut the excess, and then you should have a hem that's like that, um, with your excess gone. And so then with jeans, it's really easy. You can keep this and then just like, and then you wouldn't even be able to see it. For dress pants, you'd actually have to undo the existing hem, cut the fabric, then fold it inwards. Once you have it folded, once you have it folded inwards, something like this, then you can do one of those like running invisible stitches. So from the inside, you'll only pull one thread out and in. And in that way, in that case, you wouldn't be able to see the hemline from the outside, but your pants would be hemmed. You can do the similar thing to dresses, and or you can roll them. You can cut the hem and then just roll it and then add a top stitch on the outside. So that will give your hem like a cleaner look. You can do it easily with like a sewing machine or just a back stitch, as that creates the perfect line across from the outside. Does anyone have any more questions there? All right, cool. So this is an example of like a zigzag running stitch when you're hemming dress pants. So this is from the reverse side. So this is from looking on the inside. You can see that you can see all the thread, so that on the outside, you won't be able to see any of the thread. It's just like just a little peek. So here's a bit of my like miscellaneous sewing advice from experience. When trying to thread the needle, again, hold the thread very close to the end of the thread, and then also cut the thread using a pair of scissors, to just make sure that it's like you have like as easy as possible to go for the thread to go through the needle. When you're tying a knot, um, I'll go through tying a knot later, but yeah, for sewing things, you can either do like do a double thread, where you tie the knot at the end of both threads and then sew it like that, or you can do a single knot. And then you can also starting when you start your project or your hole, go from the edge all the from the far edge to the back edge. So um, you don't want to start at the gray line. So even though you think you're covering the whole hole, you're really not. You when you flip it over, it won't be seamless. It'll kind of look lumpy. It'll like jut out. So you want to start all the way back end where there isn't a hole, and then go through to again past the hole through, and then where there isn't a hole again. And that allows you, when you flip your clothes back inside out, you'll have like a clean straight line. When you are making a knot, the easiest way is to go down and up, and then wrap your thread around the needle a couple of times, and then pull your needle straight through, and that would allow you to have a really sturdy knot. All right. So that's the end of my presentation. That's all the sewing tips that I have found like useful or I've ever needed when I sew clothes myself at home or in the repair clinic. Um, so like, let's do a little like brainstorm activity. What are some things that we can do with our textiles to keep them out of the landfills? Yeah, that's a great one. So you can make smaller clothing items. Um, such as like accessories patches. Yeah, I've seen lots of people, like one of the activities that we've done in the repair clinic was to make our excess like t-shirts into tote bags, shopping bags, like grocery bags. You can also use like jeans, like broken jeans, or like just t-shirts, black t-shirts into patches for other clothes. Yeah, donating is a good thing to do. You can also try to sell your items online. So in that way, it doesn't go like it doesn't get the chance to be donated. In that way, like or like given to other people that like needs it. Yeah, Parchmark is a good way to do that. Is to sell your clothes. Um, you can also yeah, making patchwork items or pet toys like cool. You can also, if you like to do make sewing projects or make kind of stuffed animals by hand, you can use your clothes and put that into like stuffing. You can also stuff like beanbag chairs with your old clothes, things like that. Great. Okay. That's all I have for today. Next week's Zoom social, today at the same time is a great presentation on like how to recycle, the specifics of like where to put things, where things go when you are recycling. Thank you all for joining. You have any questions? Um, so you can find me at that's my email. And if you need anything, or if you kind of want more information, then you can find us at facilitiesberkeley.edu, Cal Zero Waste.
Thank you, Jasmine.
Thank you all for joining.
See you.